Hello everyone, and welcome to my art history presentation. Today, we are exploring Chapter 4, from Gardner's Art Through the Ages, the Prehistoric Aegean. Let's start by reviewing our timeline from the first 3 chapters. We started this course by peering into the very distant past, tens of thousands of years before humans had the ability to record history. Chapter 1 started in the Paleolithic era, when humans lived in hunter-gatherer groups. Although artifacts from this era can be found from various sites around the globe, our study focused on the regions shown here. We studied cave paintings found in modern-day southern France and northern Spain. In the Neolithic era, humans advanced in their ability to secure food through the domestication of livestock and agriculture, resulting in more complex fortified systems like those in Jericho and monumental structures like Stonehenge, whose purpose was not to protect or shelter, but serve the community that built it in ways we can only guess at. Chapter 2 also picks up in the Neolithic era in the Fertile Crescent, spanning modern-day Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, northern Kuwait, southeastern Turkey, and western Iraq. We started with the Sumerians, who formed complex city-states, built temples, and began recording communication with writing in the form of cuneiform. The chapter ended when Mesopotamia and Prussia are absorbed into the Greco-Roman world after conquest by Alexander the Great. Chapter 3 focused on Egypt. The Egyptian timeline is divided into 4 periods: the pre-dynastic and early dynastic period, the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. You can see here how the timeline compares with the civilizations we studied in Chapter 2. Notice how this chapter also ends with absorption into the Greco-Roman world after conquest by Alexander the Great, whom we'll learn more about in Chapter 5. Today's focus is Chapter 4, the Prehistoric Aegean. And again, we start in the Neolithic era, even though it is the very tail end of it. The timeline for this chapter is comparatively short, starting in 3000 BCE and ending in 1200 BCE. Chapter 4 begins with an introduction of the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad and the Odyssey are 2 ancient Greek epic poems attributed to Homer. They were written in the 8th century BCE, hundreds or even thousands of years after any of the artifacts we will be looking at today. The Iliad chronicles the Trojan War, a conflict between the city of Sparta and the city of Troy. According to the Iliad, the Trojan War began as a result of Menelaus's wife, Helen, being taken to Troy by the Trojan prince Paris. The Odyssey chronicles the hero Odysseus' long journey home and is filled with mystical creatures from Greek mythology. Until about 1870, the world regarded the Iliad and its chronicle of the Trojan War as fiction. In the late 1800s, however, Heinrich Schliemann, a wealthy German businessman with an intense passion and interest in archaeology, proved that the cities of the Iliad were real. His excavations were at sites that scholars now agree were Troy and Mycenae. At the time, much was already known about classical Greece, since the Greek ruins at Athens were visible and above ground. But little was known about the prehistoric Aegean civilizations that came before. Today, scholars group the prehistoric Aegean into three geographic areas. Cycladic art is the art of the Cyclades Islands. Minoan art encompasses the art of Crete, and Helladic art is the art of the Greek mainland. Archaeologists call art of the late Helladic period Mycenaean art after Agamemnon's great citadel of Mycenae. Let's first discuss Cycladic art. Marble was abundant on the Aegean Islands. The sculptors produced large quantities of statuettes from this material. The figures were composed of simple geometric forms and varied in size. Most of the Cycladic sculptures represent nude women, as do many of their Stone Age predecessors. The Cycladic examples often depict women with their arms folded across their abdomens, as shown here. Fewer Cycladic statuettes represent men, such as the seated harp player shown on the right. These figures were found at grave sites, but art historians can only guess at the meaning of these prehistory statues. Next, we'll discuss Minoan art. In 1900, an Englishman, Arthur Evans, began work at Knossos, where he uncovered a palace resembling a maze. Evans named the people who had constructed the palace Minoans after the mythical king Minos. You might have heard about the Greek mythological creature, the Minotaur. King Minos demanded tribute of young men and women from Athens to be fed to the Minotaur, who was a half-bull and half-man creature that inhabited a vast labyrinth. Theseus, the hero, hunted the Minotaur, and after defeating the monster found his way out of the maze with the help of the king's daughter, Ariadne. She had given Theseus a spindle of thread to mark his path through the labyrinth so he could safely find his way out again. This fresco is from the palace at Knossos and depicts the Minoan ceremony of bull leaping, in which young men grasp the horns of a bull and jump onto its back. The image has been recreated from fragments of the fresco. The dark patches are the original, and the rest is a modern restoration. The young women have fair skin, and the men have dark skin. This was an ancient convention for distinguishing between male and female. Notice also the similar convention of the profile pose with frontal eye that we saw in works from Egypt and Mesopotamia. One example of Minoan relief sculpture is the Harvester's Vase. The scene shows a crowd of young men singing as they go to or return from the fields. One figure shakes a rattle and sings with his lungs so full with air that his ribs show. This is one of the first instances in the history of art of a sculptor showing an interest in the underlying skeletal structure of the human body. Lastly, we look at an example of late Helladic or Mycenaean art. Many scholars believe that the Mycenaeans were mercenaries who fought the Egyptians and returned home rich with war booty. The best preserved Mycenaean remains are those of the citadels at Tiryns and Mycenae. The ancient Greeks, the topic of our next chapter, believed that these impressive walls were constructed by giants called Cyclops. Builders stacked the large, irregular blocks in horizontal rows and then angled them inward until the two walls met in a pointed arch. They did not use mortar. The stones are held in place by their weight, some smaller stones, and by clay. The Lion's Gate is the outer gateway of the stronghold at Mycenae. Approaching enemies had to enter this enclosed space and face Mycenaean defenders above them on both sides. The gate opening consists of post and lintel construction. Above the lintel, the stone rows form a corbelled arch, leaving an opening that lightens the weight that the lintel carries. This is called a relieving triangle. Filling this relieving triangle is a great limestone slab with two lions in high relief facing a central column. The Lion's Gate was constructed a few generations before the presumed date of the Trojan War, the saga recounted in Homer's The Iliad. At that time, elite families buried their dead outside the citadel walls in beehive-shaped tombs covered by enormous earthen mounds, like the treasury of Atreus. These are called Tholos tombs. The Greco-Romans mistakenly believed this was the repository of the treasures of Atreus, who was the father of Agamemnon and Menelaus. A long passageway called a dromos leads to a doorway with a relieving triangle, pictured on the left. The burial chamber, or tholos, consists of a series of stone corbelled courses laid on a circular base to form a dome, as you see in the right picture. The treasury of Atreus was thoroughly looted long before its modern rediscovery, but just inside the Lion Gate, Schliemann uncovered a grave site that predates the Lion Gate by some 3 centuries. The royal corpses that the Mycenaeans lowered into these graves had masks covering the men's faces, recalling the Egyptian funerary practice. The Mycenaeans used repoussé, which is a technique to sculpt the masks. Repoussé is where the artist uses a hammer to shape a sheet of metal by pounding it over a form. Compare the mask pictured here to Tutankhamun's gold mummy mask. You will remember this mask from our study of Egypt in Chapter 3. The Mycenaean metalworker was one of the first sculptors in the Prehistoric Aegean to produce a sculpted image of a man's face. By contrast, Tutankhamun's mask stands in a long line of Egyptian sculptures going back more than a millennium. One of the latest examples of Mycenaean painting is this crater commonly called the warrior vase. A crater is a bowl used for mixing wine and water. The crater features a frieze of soldiers marching off to war. As you know from previous chapters, a frieze is an art term that simply means a horizontal band of decoration, sometimes used to tell a story. At the left, a woman bids farewell to the warriors. Homer's The Iliad and Odyssey are believed to be written in the 8th to mid-7th century BCE. It is one of the oldest extant works of literature still widely read by modern audiences and is often regarded as the first substantial piece of European literature. By Homer's time, the prehistoric Aegean civilizations we examined in this presentation were a distant memory. The men and women of Crete and Mycenae, Helen of Troy, Agamemnon, Minos and Ariadne, had assumed the stature of heroes from a lost age. The artworks we've examined today predate the Iliad by many centuries, and it serves as a bridge as we move from the prehistoric Aegean, Chapter 4, on to our next chapter on ancient Greece, Chapter 5.